Ever feel like a fraud? Like eventually you're going to get caught for not being as good as you are believed to be. You're not alone. High achievers suffer disproportionately from imposter syndrome. But how do you break free? In this episode of the Morpheus Intelligence Update, we find out.
Welcome, everybody, to this Morpheus Intelligence Update. We're going to be dealing with the subject of imposter syndrome, where we are going to be looking at the whole idea of what is preventing you from showing up authentically in life. So what is imposter syndrome? Let's just start with that question. And fundamentally, it's about doubting your abilities and feeling like a fraud. And so, that sort of sense of, am I really good? I'm getting some feedback, but am I really a good, or am I a fraud? Am I just, impersonating something, or am I really, effective? And am I really that good? And this is a really interesting thing. We're going to unpack this quite a lot over the next 25 minutes or so. Often people find it difficult to accept their accomplishments. They feel like something is an error, and that's what was going on. And that's what the imposter syndrome is all about. So to unpack a little bit more detail, who actually suffers from imposter syndrome? Maybe people don't suffer, I don't know, but I think we do. And really, it's really interesting. The research is showing that it mainly affects high achieving people. And so people who have actually done quite well often feel that they're a fraud. They're a fraud because they maybe achieved but didn't have a qualification, or they're not as good at something as somebody else is, or something like that. But actually, it's broader than this. There's also where we are now seeing, for example, in any relational system, where people sometimes feel like imposters in any sort of a system, any team, any social system. So, I mean, my simple little example, which I think is I always smile at, is I've noticed that I'm not exactly the same person when I'm with my siblings than when I'm on my own. There's something there about, I'm the baby of the family, I'm the youngest one, and maybe there's something there that I'm not quite up to it, or something like that. And so it can happen in any system. It can happen. I remember as a parent regularly feeling like I'm a fraud as a parent. I'm just nowhere near as good as I want to be, or as good as I need to be. And so these are the sort of systems where we start to see this emerge as well. So it's not limited to high achievers. So why would we want to be liberated from this imposter syndrome? Why would we want that? Why would we want that liberty, that liberation from the imposter syndrome? And what we can see here is there's a bunch of different reasons that we want to be doing this. One of them is that our imposter syndrome is fueling our negative self-talk. In other words, our relationship with ourselves suffers when we have this imposter syndrome, and it fuels the sort of self-doubt, the negative self-talk. It even fuels our limiting beliefs, because very often we take on board beliefs that actually limit who we really are. And so we end up trapped in the space of the beliefs we have about ourselves that are actually limiting. The second reason why we would want to be free from this is about our relationships with others, because what imposter syndrome promotes is it promotes the sense of fitting in instead of belonging. And maybe I can just quote Brene Brown very briefly, where she, in my opinion, probably one of her best books ever that she's written, The Gifts of Imperfection, which is now 11 years old, believe it or not. In that book, she says the following. She says, fitting in is about assessing a situation and becoming who you need to be accepted. Belonging, on the other hand, doesn't require us to change who we are. It requires us to be who we are. In other words, the authenticity of being who we are is where we feel, well, now we belong because we are genuinely ourselves. Whereas fitting in, we're coming in a little bit fraudulently. We're trying to be something or pretend we're something in order to fit in. And so I think this is another really good reason why we want to be liberated from this. The next reason that we might want to be liberated is because we want to be able to live and express our truest selves at work. So we want to really be able to live and express our truest selves at work. And that's a big issue that we want to be able to get right. The fourth reason is that we want to liberate our untapped earning potential. When we are constantly held back by imposter syndrome, we actually don't believe we're worthy of the money we're being paid. I remember a boss I used to have many, many years ago in the IT industry. He used to have this standard joke he used to tell, which was, one day I'm going to be paid what I'm really worth, but unfortunately I can't live on that. So I'd rather just stay with what I've got. So that's imposter syndrome. That is the whole idea that what we're being paid is more than we're actually worth. And I think that's the big key there with imposter syndrome. And then finally, on this issue, is imposter syndrome is going to limit the legacy that we leave. That impact that we want our lives to have is going to get limited when we are suffering from imposter syndrome. We're constantly believing we're a fraud. We doubt our abilities, that kind of thing. So I'm going to do a little poll, and the poll is this. How does imposter syndrome most affect you? How does imposter syndrome most affect you? Is it your relationship with yourself, your relationship with others and fitting in? Is it limiting your expression of your truest self at work? Is it limiting your earning potential? Is it sabotaging your legacy? Something else. So just put the number into the chat. Is it number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6? And we'll pick up on this a little bit for a while. Okay, so we're seeing 2 and 4, relationships with others and earning potential, 4 and 5, earning potential and legacy. We're seeing a few 1s and 2s, so relationship with self, relationships with others, more 4s, limiting earning potential. That seems to be quite a big theme. And Jonathan, you're saying something else. You're welcome to put into the chat what that something else might be that you think that it's affecting in you. And then number 3, expressing your truest self at work. Really interesting. Thank you for the great chat comments coming through. So appreciate that. I'm going to just sort of keep that on one side and see if something else comes through. Then I will keep monitoring it. Okay, thank you for participation in the poll. So when do we need to do something about this? What is the story of when we need to take action? And so I mean, you might think that's a really obvious question, but I think it's useful just to unpack that a little bit. And so what I'd like to do here is just talk about 2 reasons for urgency. Well, actually, 1 for urgency and 1 for importance. So the urgency is we are, as a society, our people around us, our families, our colleagues, our friends, are increasingly tired of the fake news, the inauthentic, perfect Instagram lives. Everything is perfect, everything is shiny, everything is perfect. And reality is that when we truly accept ourselves, we don't have to project something which isn't us. Imposter syndrome is promoting that. So there's an urgency, but sometimes it's even the opposite, a false modesty, where that's also driven by imposter syndrome. And so really, we're looking for a healthy dose of reality. Certainly the people I'm speaking to is, give me the real stuff. Can we be vulnerable? Can we share who we really are? Can we be rather than fit in? And I think that's one of the things that makes this so urgent. But there's another thing which I think makes it really, really important. And that is that imposter syndrome is holding us back in all of life. It's holding us back in our relationships. It's holding us back in business. It's affecting all sorts of things. It's holding us back in our careers. And so sustaining a healthy self-image is really quite important. And so it's not only urgent, it's actually really, really important. And I think sometimes important is more urgent than urgent, if you see what I mean. And so this is really what we're seeing, is we're seeing that it's holding us back. We're constrained by imposter syndrome, and we really want to be liberated. So let me ask another poll question, and that is, how urgent or important is it, do you feel it is for yourself to deal with this on a scale of 1 to 10? How urgent and important do you need, is it for you to deal with imposter syndrome? Let's just get a few people coming through. It's a 10. We're seeing an 8, a 7, an 8, a 2. Okay, very good. We've got a 9.42. Very good. Nines, fours. Okay, eights. All right. A whole bunch of different scores there. Very, very interesting. Okay. It creates excuses that we tell ourselves. Jonathan, you're 100% correct. Thank you for that. Also got a 7 coming through. All right. Okay. So we've got a few interesting scores coming through for that. Now, let me continue. And what I want to get into now, and this is where I'm going to spend a little bit more time, is how can we live a confident, authentic, and liberated life where we're not sort of struggling with any sort of false sense of who we are and that kind of thing. And so I'm going to take a little bit of time with this, and I'm going to start with a very interesting idea, which is the idea of confidence as a journey. Confidence as a journey. And the reason I talk about that, I talk about this a lot, is that so many people believe that confidence will happen one day when I will have full confidence when I'm rich enough, when I am educated enough, when I am thin enough, when I am successful enough, when I am popular enough, then I will have confidence. And I actually think it's the other way around, is when we have confidence, then we will start meeting our financial goals. We'll start upskilling ourselves in the areas where necessary. We will probably lose some weight if you need to lose some weight, where our success and our impact will flow and we will be popular. And so the real issue here for me is that confidence comes from a different journey. Confidence comes from all of who we really are. Each and every person has their own genius. Each and every person is a genius in their own right. And so we have this abilities within us that are genuine, they are real. I believe every person is a genius in their own way, but we also need to accept our slowness. I think there's certain areas where I'm absolutely brilliant. I think there's some areas where I'm pretty slow. And so there's a whole lot of things, our mediocrities, our quirks, our introversions, our extroversions, all of that, this fully embracing who we really, really are. And what we're going to do here is just to talk about this a little bit more, is I'm going to introduce this essence journey as a concept, and then we're going to be playing with it a little bit. And so, the self-expression of who we really are, that's what we're really looking for. But I've got a little poll I'm going to run again, which is on a scale of 1 to 10 for each of these, A, B, and C. How intelligent are you? How creative are you? And how relational are you? So rate yourself. Intelligence on a scale of 1 to 10, creativity on a scale of 1 to 10, and your relationality on a scale of 1 to 10. Some people would call this third one connectedness, the how good are you at being connected with others? Okay, so let's have a quick look. Okay, so we've got some quite high scores, we've got some lower scores. Very interesting. Okay. Okay, very interesting. So we've got a whole sort of variety from different people, different sort of ideas, different sort of areas where people would, how people would describe themselves in these various ways. Some people feel they're less intelligent, more creative, or more relational, and so on. And so we're seeing, I don't know if you're noticing, quite a few diversities in people's responses. And that's really very fascinating. So the concept I want to introduce here is the question I've asked in the poll is the wrong question. It is totally, totally the wrong question. There is a different question we should be asking ourselves. And I'm not going to ask you to put this into the chat, but you can if you want to, I guess. I'm not going to stop you either. And the right questions are the following three questions. How am I intelligent? How am I creative? How am I relational? Because everybody has an aptitude where an area where they're intelligent. And and the better we understand how we are intelligent is much more important than how intelligent are we. Everybody has creativity, but we need to understand how we are creative. So, for example, for me on creativity, there are a bunch of areas where I regularly find I am extremely creative, absolutely brilliant at times. And there's a bunch of areas where I'm not creative at all. So I, for example, have never been good. My fine motor skills are terrible. I've never been good at drawing. I don't even write in a way I can read my own handwriting. So when I look at creativity, painting, drawing, sculpting, musical instruments, none of those apply to me. But there's a bunch of others that do. And so this journey of how am I creative is way more important than how creative am I. And the same with relational. So many people believe, oh, because I'm not good at networking at social events, therefore I'm not relational. Or because I don't have deep, just 2 or 3 ultra deep relationships, therefore I'm not relational. No, there is a relational facet to every single human being. In fact, our brains are wired to connect. There's a lot of research on this, which shows we don't fully function if there isn't a connection in our lives. If we don't have connection, whether it's family, friends, whatever it might be, without that connection, our brains don't function properly and we won't fulfill our potential. So we all relational. It's wired in. It's part of our DNA that we are relational, but how we are each relational differs incredibly. Some people are very strong on the emotional connection. Some people really good at putting different people together. There's incredible diversity. And so this is the better question is, how are you relational, not how relational are you? And the intelligence one is one of the ones I can spend the most time on because I've done a lot of work. I mean, just taking StrengthsFinder, I've probably done about 1,500 hours of coaching people on StrengthsFinder. And I've yet to meet somebody who doesn't have some unique intelligence that I haven't come across before, some very, very special aptitude, because everybody has intelligence, but what that is will play out differently for each person. I hope that's a really useful statement and a useful idea for us taking this forward. Okay, so in this journey of how do we live this confident, authentic, and liberated life, there's this a confidence journey, there's this essence journey. So I've covered those two, but I'm going to give you a few more that I think might be really quite interesting. And so the first one is the idea of knowing who you are. This is kind of now really get to know who you really are. It's about opening all the doors. I know Bruce Wade and I have often had discussions about opening all the doors, opening and looking at the hidden parts of us, really getting familiar with all of the things in our lives that maybe we are holding back on or trying to ignore or trying to suppress. And so this is another way that we can get liberated from imposter syndrome, is to be opening all those doors. Another one, and by the way, this looks just like my granddaughter, and it isn't her, but it looks just like her. The next one is accept all of who you are. And this is about being curious about what you find. So when you open these doors, when you get to know yourself, accept it. If it's there, accept it. And there's some incredible research that shows that when we accept who we are, we're more likely to grow than when we are resisting who we are. When we are resisting, we sort of put our growth then means we're going to dig our heels in, and we're not going to allow us to move forward. Whereas we accept ourselves, warts and all, then suddenly we're liberated to change. And another example of this is some research on marriage, of how when a spouse is trying to change their partner, they often don't change. When they accept their partner as they are, their partner grows again. And that's a really interesting concept as well. And so this acceptance, so know who we are, accept who we are. The third area, oh my goodness, this guy looking over my shoulder. Grow who you are is the third one here. Growth is really becoming more of who you really are. It's not trying to become somebody else. And this is a key to growth that so many people have missed, is that the real key to growth is that we have much more potential in the area of our strengths, that can grow way more rapidly than trying to change ourselves to be somebody that we are not. But basically, this whole idea is adding knowledge and skill to the best of you, adding knowledge and skill to your talents is actually where you have the greatest potential. In fact, almost unlimited potential. This can go right off the scale, that the amount of potential that is available when we are growing and becoming more of who we really are. So that would be the third step. So know, accept, grow. And then the next one is love who you are. Love who you are. Nurtured love overflows to others. The more we nurture love in our own hearts, the more love we have for others. If we don't nurture love here, how are we going to give love to others? Where's it going to come from if we haven't nurtured it here and we want to give it to others? But when we love who we are, in warts and all, I've got to love my quirkiness, my debilitating weaknesses, my mediocrities, but my genius as well. When I love all of that and I nurture love in all of that, this overflows to the people around me. It overflows to the teams that I work with at work, the colleagues that I've got, my family, my friends, my spouse, my partner, whoever. All of those start to flow. And so that is the fourth tip. And the fifth tip over here of dealing with imposter syndrome is bring who you are. Your unique essence is a unique gift to the world. Every single person has something unique to offer to the world. And you might not be quirky like this. Maybe I am, but you might not be. But whatever is in your deepest essence, bringing that to the world is a unique gift. And if we don't get the real you that is unique, then we are going to be limiting the impact that we have. And so those are the tips that we have, the 5 tips for this.